Hello, Internet, and welcome once again to the Free-to-Play cast, brought to you by MMOBomb.com, your home for all things free-to-play related. I'm your host, Mike Byrne, aka magicman. It's May 18th. You're watching this on May 19th or later, episode 181. We've got financial news out the wazoo. So, to help us cover it, let's get started and introduce Mr. Jason Winter. How are you, sir?
What episode is this?
181.
It says 180 in the show notes.
It says 181 in the title. There, now
there
it says...
you go. There, you just changed it.
There, now it says 181 in the notes proper.
I figured if we're going to talk about numbers all episode, I better make sure we get at least that one right.
Yeah, yep, last week was 180, so it was just the title of the document was updated. Okay. The number
maybe I time traveled or something. Maybe I was actually doing last week's show again.
Yeah? Also on the line from Free to Play Weekly, Mr. Zach Sharps. What's up, sir?
Nothing much. Kind of bummed about the Black Desert update coming, and I'll tell you guys why that is later. So
your Skype cam's making you look a little rosy today, or maybe it's your lighting. You look very full of blood in your face. You would appeal to a vampire right now.
I guess I'm a vampire today.
Or
it's just cold out, maybe.
Yeah, maybe you're just blushing. I don't know. Are you embarrassed of something?
Nah. I mean, I could have rolled around and blushed. I mean, it could be.
Well, hey, what you do with your personal time is your own damn business. Let's head over, get started with the news. God, you made that transition awkward.
You're the one who brought it up. I didn't even notice. Now I can't stop looking at his red face.
Well, he's the one who started talking about rolling around and blush. I didn't have anything to do with that. Don't you try and blame me, Anderson Cooper. All right, here we go. So the first big financials, the ones we were really, really, really waiting for because of a particular title, but also because of, expansions and new games coming out in the West, and we were very interested to see how they were doing. NCSoft financials are out, and you want a summation? Blade and Soul, strong as hell right now. Lineage, the original Lineage, is still the big dog in the NCSoft portfolio. Ion Lineage 2 doing well. Guild Wars 2 still looking pretty solid, even months after the expansion. Even some gains there. All looking good. I mean, just generally a great report across the board, right, Jason? There was nothing bad in this report.
Nothing whatsoever.
Not a single thing bad. NCSoft is making a ton of money. They're doing really well. Their new releases are still doing well months and months later here in the West with Blade and Soul. And that's about it. So let's move on. And... oh, wait.
Do we have to bring it up?
Oh, wait. There's a
cliff that we need to jump off of right now, guys.
Wait, there's another game on here I didn't see.
It's easy to miss, considering how tiny its little bars are.
It is.
WildStar.
Oof.
Took you that long to get a magnifying glass?
Not doing too well.
Yeah.
Not doing well at all. Like, in dire straits here, Jason. What's going on? Take us through it.
Well, yeah, they're down to 1.282 billion Korean won, which is its lowest total. That comes out to, I did the math at one point, but it's basically like about less than half of what City of Heroes was making the last time we had numbers on that. And we know how that went.
And the last time we had numbers on them was roughly 2 quarters before it shut down, right?
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, I know a lot of people are looking forward to, the Steam launch for WildStar is going to come. At this point, I think even that's not going to help.
So many people waiting for Steam, though. So many. And like, here's the comments on the article. Any bets on WildStar closing before the Steam launch, which you just brought up? Mm-hmm. Why so many people want WildStar to die? Shouldn't we all keep fingers crossed for them to revive this unique title? WildStar shutdown is imminent. The game director and creative director were both fired right after these financial metrics were announced. We'll come back to that comment because that one's it's not entirely accurate. Had a sub for WildStar when it first went live, canceled because of money problems, eventually went back to WoW. WildStar will keep dying because the free-to-play model's really bad. Here's my favorite. The Steam Jesus patch will save it, Zach. Remember the whole story about the Jesus patch that was coming to SWTOR years and years ago? Apparently the Jesus patch is still a thing. There's no saving WildStar when it's on such a shitty engine. The game runs worse than any MMO I've ever played. Sucks about WildStar. I hate it because I'm a subscriber. I wonder how those players will be compensated if the game is canceled. You won't be.
No.
I hope they don't kill the game, but it doesn't look good. From what I see, WildStar is dead. Shame about WildStar. I mean, these are just over and over and over and over. On the plus side of this report, Blade and Soul did remarkably better than I thought it was going to. I expected it to do well with a Western release, Jason, but the numbers for Blade and Soul, in my opinion, were kind of staggeringly high.
Yeah, I mean, it went up almost like 2/3 from what, like 60-70% from what it was in the previous quarter, which, I mean, for a game that just came out and has been kind of shit on a little bit. People have kind of moved away from that now, almost going to Black Desert. That's what it seems like to me. That's where a lot of the talk is. But I mean, it was anticipated for so long. We thought it was gonna flop a little bit because people were looking forward to it, but it took so long. But it's still done pretty well in its first quarter. Now, is that going to continue? Is it going to maintain that momentum now that people have had a chance to play it? And like I said, it seems to me like a lot of people have moved on already. Is it going to hold on to that kind of momentum going forward? And if I had to guess, I'd say probably not.
But I don't think we're going to see anywhere near the fall.
No. I mean, even before it came out in the West, it was still pretty healthy. It was still around 25, 30 billion Korean won, which is a pretty good number.
Yeah, and Zach, looking through the financials, it's weird seeing numbers like 66 million, 26 million, 20 million, 18 million, 37 million, and then even at its peak, which was fourth quarter 2015 when it made the free-to-play conversion, we saw the results of that, 2 million.
Yep.
For WildStar, 2.5 million.
And that's the sad thing. I mean, WildStar, I wouldn't call it like exactly unique. I mean, it has some unique traits to it, but it's not really that much different than the standard cookie cutter that we're all used to. It really comes down to the fact that they didn't really help themselves over time. Whenever they did promotions, it seemed like the servers had at least a second delay on the combat. Whenever I tried the game and hopped back into it, that's what I experienced. I tried the free trial. Then I got it off the Humble Bundle and then tried it again. Each of those 2 times, everyone was complaining about server lag, and it never let up. And so I just was like, all right, well, I guess the game's dead because they can't get their servers functioning. And I think a lot of people who maybe hop back into the game maybe experienced that, because I saw it on the Reddit numerous times. People were complaining about it. And then on top of that, there just hasn't been enough content to keep people coming back to it. And there was a recent content update, but from what I've been told, it's really tiny compared to what a lot of other MMOs are releasing. And as far as NCSoft's portfolio goes, it doesn't really fit in it anymore. I mean, it's not performing well at all. I mean, they might as well revive City of Heroes at this point, because at least that's different than what they already have on their portfolio, because WildStar's sort of a semi-fantasy sci-fi title. Where they already have Guild Wars 2, they already have Lineage, they already have Ion, a lot of fantasy titles, and all of them are sort of cookie cutter, where City of Heroes was at least a superhero MMO that was a little bit different. So it really doesn't make sense to have in their portfolio at this point. Maybe they will just break away from NCSoft and not completely shut down. That's one avenue I could see them going, but it just depends whether or not NCSoft's willing to let go of those rights and allow them to do that. And will it shut down before the Steam launch, or will they give it about 20th shot this time around to launch on Steam, see if they can hold more users, maybe get a cut of that initial boost in revenue, and then sell it off or cancel it later once that boost revenue is gone? It sucks.
A couple of numbers just to kind of back that up too. If WildStar was bringing in 13 times as much money as it currently is, it would still be the last place game in NCSoft's portfolio.
Yep.
Wow.
And the other thing that I brought up was its first quarter, it had about 28 billion in Korean won in sales. Now that was really just its first month, because it launched in June of 2014.
Right.
So it really only had that 1 month of the quarter. So it is down 98.5% from that initial month on a monthly basis.
On the topic of people leaving Carbine, obviously we have Mike Donatelli, Chris Behrens, who were previously announced. Corey Herndon is the latest. It's the lead writer. So some big names. Now, they weren't fired right after these numbers came out. And Carbine actually released an official statement on this one, too. But back in March, when they did their layoffs in Carbine, these three were scheduled to be part of that layoff package, but some people were asked to stay on for indefinite periods of time to help with the transition and everything. And now this is just when these people are leaving. So it's not as a result of these financials that, the lead writers and things like that were just axed. It's just the layoffs that happened a few months ago are now being implemented on those people that were asked to stay for a little while. So here's a couple of things, and Zach, you kind of brought one of these up, and that is what happens with WildStar. Does it just go away? Does NCSoft kind of make a deal with somebody else, and Carbine Studios and WildStar move to them? And one of the things that I thought was interesting, and it could totally be nothing, and I'll explain why, is that the WildStar in-game currency is changing. It's not going to be the Ncoin anymore, which is NCSoft's primary game currency. Buy Ncoin, you can use it in any game. Now, this could totally be nothing, and it could just be absolutely Steam related, right, Jason? They don't want you to be able to buy Ncoin through Steam and then use it in other games, and therefore NCSoft is unnecessarily giving up a cut of the currency money to Steam.
Yeah, I've heard stuff like that before.
So
and also,
could totally make sense. But it could make sense in the it's not going to be part of our portfolio for much longer standpoint, too. Without a comment either way, it seems like an odd change to make.
Yeah, but then again, you also have, look at Guild Wars 2, which uses gems. It doesn't use NC coins, so it does its own thing as well. So, and might have nothing to do with anything, but it's something people are certainly.
To be fair, though, Guild Wars was never on Ncoin.
True, but it also doesn't
with.
use their stuff anyway. So yeah, maybe not.
It's an odd change to make, I think, without a clarification comment on why you're making it. You leave it open to speculation by not just clarifying why we're doing it.
And one more thing, it's one thing that I was really interested in, and it's something that I don't think I'd be able to find anywhere because a lot of these financials are clumped together, they're not sort of game separate in terms of like the very detailed financials, is their operating costs. Because if they're making a little bit of money, what's their operating costs look like? Like, what's their net profit? Because a lot of game companies, as long as a game's making profit and it's not, bleeding money, I don't really see why they wouldn't mind keeping it in their portfolio.
Well, NCSoft did exactly that with City of Heroes. It wasn't profitable enough.
Exactly. But I'm saying other game companies, because we've seen NCSoft cut ties with obviously stuff that's still profitable. But if they're making a decent chunk of change, I mean, other companies could pick them up just to have them as sort of a revenue generator. Because especially since the game itself, it could be ran with a smaller team as long as they're organized. That's the thing that WildStar's been suffering throughout its entirety is organization. The leadership has not been there. And we've seen that with inconsistencies with the patches. There's a lot of bugs always with these patches. And they just haven't really been able to keep their promises. And so I think a change in leadership, maybe, get more organized, maybe, sort of compact the team a bit in order to keep your best developers, get rid of some that maybe are not really as great, and just sort of refine the entire organization of WildStar would be the best thing to do at this point before it's all over in general for them. Because they're sort of the ship's sinking, and either they could patch the holes up or jump onto a brand new ship, and I think it's time for them to jump onto a new ship.
I find it really interesting, Jason, that this portfolio is up year over year, and across the board. There isn't besides WildStar, there isn't a title that is down Q1 of this year compared to Q1 of last year. Not one.
Oh. I hadn't even noticed that.
Not one. And when you make that, like comparing it to last quarter, okay, you make those comparisons, but it's a little tough. You look at Guild Wars and you go, okay, well, comparing this quarter to the last quarter, it's down, but last quarter were the primary numbers from its expansion pack coming out, and naturally we would expect a little tapering off. So I like looking at the year-over-year numbers, and year-over-year, Q1 2016 to 2015 for Guild Wars 2, up 10 million. Blade and Soul, obviously the anomaly because the game became available in the West finally, but that's almost doubled year over year. Even Ion up 2 million. Lineage 2 up 6 million. Lineage, the original Lineage, up 12 million. And we're talking about Korean won here, but those are still big numbers even when you go through the exchange rates.
I'm just going to clarify, those are actually billions, because it's
billions.
Like,
I apologize.
It's up 2,000 million, which means it's up 2 billion.
2 billions. Billions. So I'm talking Bs here.
With a B, yeah.
Year over year. And that's pretty impressive. I mean, it's impressive.
Yeah, I mean, and they're not just, it's not just all about the growth overseas. So I'll bring this up in a little bit, too. That 25% of their revenue comes from North America and Europe. So that's a pretty sizable amount. And it shows that they really are, hitting a pretty good, pretty good with all their goals for places outside of their homeland.
I'm still stunned by how well the original Lineage does. And I know that that's predominantly in the East. It's not even available here in the West anymore through like our own servers or anything like that.
And the even great thing about that is it was a fairly recent thing. In fact, I look back at their numbers. They were about half as big as they were until late 2012. And then they just doubled and have been up there virtually ever since. Like,
yep.
What did they do, 8 years into their life?
Yeah, and even Ion, which is a game that I dabble in occasionally, it's a bit too old-fashioned and grindy for Jason's taste, but I dabble in it occasionally. I'm impressed. I'm impressed by the numbers there, and we don't see these aren't even games that like hit the MMOBomb page every other day because of updates either. It's not like Lineage 2, Ion, they're not getting... They do get updates. We do cover updates and expansions and things like that. But it's not like Blade and Soul right now, or even WildStar, where every couple of weeks we're covering some type of update for them. These are more well-established games that just keep rolling. And you've got to be impressed by your game of choice there, Jason, Guild Wars 2 still.
Yeah, I'm a little surprised to see that it maintained itself as well as it did after Heart of Thorns, which was not well received by a lot of people. I think, and we were talking about this a little bit about a month ago. I was talking with some friends. It seemed like around late January, maybe mid-February, was when we started getting a little discontented about the pace of expansions or updates and so on. So, but enough of it was still, I guess, loaded into that quarter to do pretty well. I'm gonna be interested to see how it does with the next quarter, with them not really having any major updates over this past few months.
I think free-to-play also helped Guild Wars 2 a lot, too, because it's only free-to-play for the vanilla version, but that still gets people in the game to be able to spend money in the cash shop, and it's an influx of people that maybe didn't try out Guild Wars 2 before. So I think that's definitely helping them from a revenue standpoint, too, and then it also makes it so people who maybe liked the game when they tried it out can get Heart of Thorns and enjoy that, too. So I think that was just a genius play by ArenaNet to do that. And it just sort of, all this financial data kind of makes WildStar seem even more like an outlier, and just sort of the one that's lagging behind, because everything else is up, WildStar's not. Is it time to cut ties or wait for Steam?
And of course, here's what happens. It always starts that discussion of, is any company going to make the next big AAA MMORPG or even try anymore? And we had the discussion when Star Wars The Old Republic started tanking out of the gate and had to do its38 conversion and everything. WildStar, I think, makes this Project Copernicus, another one, when that whole 38 studios went under. WildStar is certainly another one where is any company going to give a company a chance or money to do a chance when, hey, just look at WildStar, when I think there were so many extenuating circumstances with how badly the company was mismanaged, and maybe still is to a certain extent, that it's sad. I don't want to see it fail because that's not good for the industry as a whole, but you kind of made your own bed with this one. On the flip side of financials, Nexon's financials were also released, Zach, and these weren't all that great. I mean, it wasn't terrible. It wasn't terrible, but it wasn't all that great, particularly in Europe and in the Americas. Revenue overall was up. Profits overall were down. Mobile becoming a much bigger part of their portfolio, which all of us anticipated when they started saying they were going to move into mobile. But nothing really on the docket for the rest of the year, so you gotta wonder where the financials go from here, Zach.
I mean, Nexon's one of those companies that maybe like last year or a couple quarters ago I would be like, okay, well they should be doing all right. but I don't really notice a lot of big Nexon news being released lately. There's not really a lot of like fantastic titles that are like, oh, we just released this update, we just released this update. It's more of just like smaller things, and then I believe Ghost in the Shell Online is still in early access, so they don't really even have that to go off of. They should just release that to free to play already and get rid of that like $2 buy-in, which is just absolutely stupid.
They do have Riders of Icarus too, which is going into closed
which
beta
is,
test 3 at the beginning of June.
Yeah, and that might help them out quite a lot because that's a newer game. It looks nice, especially from its curb appeal. Whether or not it will perform well over here in the West is a whole different story. We'll have to wait and see, but at least that's something that will happen down the road, so they can be at least a little bit optimistic moving forward. It's weird looking at Nexon though, especially contrasting it with NCSoft. They're always sort of pumping out new things at NCSoft, where we see Nexon and they're sort of like, a little bit here and there, and then here's a game, but that game doesn't really have massive content updates. It's a little bit things trickled here and there. And I haven't heard anything from Dirty Bomb a lot lately, and so that's kind of sad too. So I think they just need to start pumping out updates, and that will boost their revenues quite a bit. So get people back in the game.
Also still have, although we won't cover it much, Jason, Lawbreakers coming too.
Yeah, that's another decent title that we're getting coverage of in the U.S. But like I was trying to brought up a little bit with the NCSoft, our Nexon is so focused in China and Korea. If you look at their numbers, 84% of their revenue comes from China and Korea, with 8% from Japan, 4% North America, 4% Europe. So only about 8% from North America and Europe, the kind of people we expect to visit our site, as opposed to 25% from NCSoft. So that's why it really seems like they just don't do that much, from what we can see. I look at their pages. They talk about, what was it? Dominations was apparently their big thing in Korea. Dungeon and Fighter was their big game from China. Mobile games, we're just not going to cover really that much over here. So, yeah, it never seems like they're doing a whole lot from our standpoint, and they don't have a whole lot planned. They even expect, 30 to 20% year-over-year decrease in North America, Europe, and other in that section for quarter two. So, little they have, they're expecting to get even less going forward this year. So,
yeah, not a stellar report overall for them. Yeah, and with not much on the calendar, it does make you a little, at least here in the West, it makes you a little nervous that you're not gonna see much from Nexon this coming year.
Now, overall, though, they are almost like they're over twice as big as NCSoft. Their overall revenues was $471 million, and NCSoft was $202. So it's interesting to see that they're that much bigger, but they just don't have that much of an impact in the West.
We aren't their market. it's that simple. We just aren't their market. They keep eating up the money in the East. All right, before we head on over to the bombs here, we've got I thought this was kind of surprising, actually, on both fronts. We've got a number of MMORPGs that are making the jump to the consoles. And while that's been happening with things like Neverwinter and other titles, Perfect World Entertainment, Jason, announced that Star Trek Online will be making the jump to PlayStation 4 and Xbox One this fall. So later this year, it's going to offer 6 years worth of existing content, an updated engine, a modified UI, 130 featured episodes that you can play alongside all the Star Wars characters and everything. And while I'm not surprised to see more MMOs hitting the console side of things, I gotta say I was pretty surprised this was the one that Perfect World put up there first, Jason.
Yeah, I mean, Perfect World's been. We did an interview with them a couple of years ago where they were talking about making a lot of moves to consoles, and of course they brought Neverwinter over there, and Neverwinter makes a certain amount of sense.
Picked up Gigantic.
Sure, they picked up Gigantic. And Neverwinter makes a certain amount of sense, as does Gigantic. They're both kind of action oriented, which seems a little more like the right sort of thing to do for consoles. Now, I think Star Trek Online does have like targeting controls, like action combat kind of controls, but it's sort of at its base still a tab targeting game.
I like the space combat. I hate the ground combat.
Yeah, and it's got a lot. It seems like it just has a lot more buttons from what I can recall, and that's the sort of thing that's probably more difficult to execute on a console, having all the different controls and so on, having to manage all the menus of all your characters and so on. They've simplified a few things. I haven't looked too much into that new skill system they were working on, but they've definitely been trying to simplify things and make it a little more approachable, I think, and maybe that's partially been fueled by their desire to bring it to consoles. But yeah, I do agree. It's kind of an odd choice. It seems like a much more traditional kind of game. Now it is Star Trek, so maybe that's part of why they're bringing it there. They know it's a big IP that they think they can make a pretty big splash with, kind of like how SOE did with DCUO. So maybe that's the kind of thinking they're going with. They want to have that big, well-known IP to bring over to consoles to hopefully bring in a whole new group of players who haven't experienced it yet on PC.
Zach, this one maybe not as surprising for me as Star Trek. Terra Online going consoles. Now, this is being reported by MMO Culture, who does a lot of translating. Cinderboy over there does a lot of translating from overseas news. I'm sorry, MMO Culture. Was it Cinderboy who posted this? I want to make sure I give credit to the correct author here. No name here.
Nope, nothing
Of
on
course. All right. Well, we'll quote the site then. MMO Culture itself noticed a posting on Bluehole Studios website for a job for a lead to help transition Terra to consoles. Now, the idea of Terra on the consoles doesn't surprise me at all. The game is perfectly adapted to a controller. It has been built for a controller since the beginning, and it pretty much was modeled after the Xbox 360 / Xbox One controller, so not surprised at all. A little surprised that it's this far down the road. We did reach out to NMAS Entertainment on this to see if we could get confirmation or some comment, and this was the quote we got back. While NMAS doesn't speculate on rumors, our parent company Bluehole is always exploring new and exciting avenues with their games. There is no official announcement at present to make about the future of the Terra franchise, but we look forward to continuing our adventures in the world of Terra as much as our fans do. So, yeah, it's going to consoles. They're just not ready to say it officially. You don't look for a technical lead to help bring Terra to consoles unless you're actually going to move it to consoles. Not surprising, Zach, but maybe surprised by how long it took. What about you?
I'm surprised by how long it took, but it certainly is already suited for consoles. You already mentioned the controls and whatnot are already fine-tuned for console. As far as controllers go, and I think the game itself, because it's more action-oriented, it does certainly lend to that type of platform. And to touch on Star Trek, because I don't really think Terra is that surprising, Star Trek Online, I think the reason why they're doing it is, number one, it's Star Trek just in general. And so they see the success of Star Wars The Old Republic on PC. They're like, well, that there's not really anything like that on the consoles. Let's go ahead and touch into that market, make a lot of money off of the hype of the IP, and also because if we refine our UI properly, we could sort of have the Final Fantasy 14 UI where it's very fine-tuned, even though Final Fantasy 14 does have a lot of icons, especially if you're a raider. So as long as they do it properly, and as long as they redesign that UI properly, it's going to run a lot better than a lot of us probably would assume, and probably perform really well on consoles as far as revenues go. And I think what this whole picture really just tells us is consoles are very well monetized, because there was that article a long time ago where Smedley mentioned that DC Universe Online and other forms of their console dabbling was performing at 2, 3 times, 4 times even the rate that they were on the PC in terms of monetization. And so we see that Perfect World soon after releasing Neverwinter on the Xbox One, they're now bringing over another IP, and then they also bought Gigantic. So what does that tell you? It tells you that this is a very profitable venture, and it tells us all that console MMOs and developers bringing games from the PC over to console is going to be more of a norm. And this also tells us moving forward as well that when it comes to newer MMOs, they might be a little bit more catered towards a possible console launch. I think the biggest surprise and the game that really should go to console that we may not really discuss a lot here on the show is Skyforge. That game is perfectly designed for a console release, but it hasn't done so just yet, and that's surprising to me because we see all these other MMOs flocking over there, getting all this revenue, And by the time that game maybe dabbles in that particular venture, it might already be a saturated market and they might lose out. So I think that Perfect World just sees the money. They're following it. And I also think that Bluehole sees the money as well. And they also see that their game is very refined, has a lot of content to offer, and has a very well monetized title just in general in terms of their item mall, what it has in it. It doesn't feel super unfair. It feels, fair enough, and also offers a lot as well. So I think it's very smart, and I definitely give them A+ props as far as business goes.
Let's slide over against to the weekly bombs. Sorry, kind of like spit all over myself there.
You were just waiting for Zach to get finished. Like, oh, bombs, bombs, bombs.
I'm going to go first. I'm going to give a dub for something good here to the art style of X Legends' upcoming Twin Saga. Now, I don't know if the game's going to be anything damn special. Maybe with the housing thing that they do. I don't know. We just have a few videos on the site about it now. Dev walkthroughs, that type of thing. But I do love that art style, and I don't know why. I know it's a little more cartoony and, even with the anime big eyes and stuff. But I do like that art style. I find it charming. It really works for me, that Dragon Quest-esque type thing. So, dub to Twin Saga's art style. Go ahead, Zach.
I'm going to give an A-bomb to Dom Games for releasing the Valencia updates on June 1st. And it's not the content that bothers me. It's one of the mechanics that they're going to sort of enhance even more, which is their enchanting system. And right now, the enchanting max cap is 15, plus 15. And I just got all my gear finally to plus 15, and my weapons are still sort of hovering around like 13. And so now I'm going to have to get up to plus 20. And as much as it felt like a grind before to do such a thing, now it's going to feel even worse. And so I just wish that they would completely remove it, because the Amity game is complete garbage. That's the worst part of the game. And the way that they make you farm for gear in the Amity system in order to save a lot of money is just completely absurd. So I wish that they would completely remove that, keep it at plus 15 forever, no plus 20, release new gear instead, and just call it good. But the Valencia, as far as the content and like the landmass and whatnot, I'm pretty hyped for that.
Jason, how the hell can we make this guy happy? We remove levels, he's not happy. We remove the grinding of the levels. We remove tier gear, so he's not grinding that out, he's not happy. We say, okay, well, you got to progress somehow. How about you enchant your gear? And he's like, oh, damn it, now I got to grind and do that. Jason,
so terrible, though.
What do you got, Jason?
So what we got to do is we got to get him playing Overwatch.
There you go.
There's no
advancement there,
just pretty skins and so on. So
I didn't enjoy it. I didn't enjoy it.
But I'm giving an A-bomb to Blizzard or Amazon or whoever's fault it is for running out of the $20 Battle.net gift cards, which I was going to buy because I got money in my Amazon account from doing my Coinstar, cashing in and stuff, like my free money practically. And I was going to buy a couple of those $20 gift cards so I could buy Overwatch. But they're out of stock right now. How do you run out of stock of a gift card, of codes, basically?
That's like going to the cash shop in your favorite free-to-play game and an item is sold out.
Just somebody, I don't know if it's Amazon just like misplacing their stuff or Blizzard not providing with enough codes, but get more in there already. Darn it, I need to buy this game.
From the viewers, Elusive X Treasure says, dub to Heroes of the Storm for the new heroes they previewed. I'm definitely going to grab Chromie and the Fell skin when they come out, and I think the hubby will be getting Mediv. Still wish they would give us a Forsaken hero, though. Lillian Voss would be awesome. Go ahead, Zach.
Joshua Knight says, the Perfect World Entertainment for the announcement that Star Trek Online is coming to PS4 and Xbox One. As a huge Trekker, Deep Space Nine being my favorite. I have always loved playing STO occasionally. The storyline missions are great with the same cast as the show sometimes. And the first time I flew to DS9 and played Dabo at the Quarks, I knew this was an MMO that I would play. I love MMO with controller support, and being able to play it on the PS4 will mean I return to the game, possibly replacing Final Fantasy XIV as my main MMORPG of choice.
Here's the thing that I hate about the whole console transition sometimes, though, Jason, and this is predominantly the case anymore. They're always on different servers. There's never, like, when I played Final Fantasy XI back in the day, I started playing on the PlayStation 2, moved to the Xbox 360, and eventually started playing on a PC, because I was exclusively console years and years and years and years and years ago. But that game, I could log into my character from any of them. In today's day and age, that just doesn't happen. Go ahead, Jason.
First world problems.
Indeed. Indeed.
Lord Fabulous says, I love Quintlan's haircut.
We will let her know.
Yeah. And she spends a lot on those haircuts. We've talked about this before. So
Yes, we have.
it's good to know that's worth it.
Nomi says, Magic Man's explanation of why he hasn't been able to get into WildStar is the exact feeling I have when I tried playing. Something about that game keeps me from getting into it, and I have absolutely no idea what it is exactly. I still don't know. I can't. I downloaded it. I reinstalled it yesterday. I don't know. I'll play it for like 2 weeks, and I'll have fun, and then just stop playing for no particular reason. Go ahead, Zach.
Zaberfang X says, for me, I am waiting for WildStar to hit on Steam. My reason behind it is due to the player base with Steam will bring a rush of players, new or old, to play with, and even level up together. I honestly would not wait for that because, one, the game might shut down before that, and two, the game servers are probably going to shit the bed completely. Just don't wait. Play it now.
Go ahead, Jason.
Moxie Gaming says, I'm still actively playing WildStar. Reason, my guild's still progressing on raids, and I like the fast-paced combat. Well, good to see that someone's still doing it.
Cookie Dough FX1 says, play a bit of WildStar after it went free to play. I uninstalled it, but I might give it a second try once it comes to Steam. Steam is just very convenient and reminds me I have other games installed when I go to launch a specific game. Again, lots of people waiting for Steam. Not a lot of dub bombs and A bombs last week, gang. Don't forget your weekly bombs. So I just took your WildStar feedbacks and threw them in there. Question of the week last week that almost none of you cared about. I think there was like 2 people that answered it, and I grabbed both of their answers. Motiga and Gigantic, now under the Perfect World Entertainment umbrella. What do you think? Katsu says, the best move they could have made. Having played it in the Windows Store being the middleman, I can say it made troubleshooting any issues a nightmare. Simple fixes like resolution had long, drawn-out routes just to fix. While there's a chance this may be too little too late, let's not hope, as it's a pretty fun game with a great art style. Go ahead, Jason. Finish this up here.
Baka says, Atlas Reactor really was a fun game. I don't mind that it went by to play, but considering how niche it is, the price tag's really going to kill them. What does this have to do with Motika and Purple?
I just threw his or her whole comment in there together.
Got back into WildStar after the news. Did play it when it first came out, and it's nice to see they've made changes to keybinds and all, so you can pretty much play it like an action combat MMO, almost.
True.
Best MMO news, though, for the week has to go to Gigantic. Moving from the Windows Store really is going to make it miles better in troubleshooting the issues many players had. Once it moves to the new platform, I'll feel better getting back into it, as I know that many of the simple issues that weren't being solved can be pushed forward and solved both by the devs and players getting access to the config file finally.
So the 2 people that cared, they thought it was good news. The rest of the internet apparently did not care. So the question for this week, what MMO, MOBA, whatever free-to-play title do you want to see a console version of, and why? If you're in the MMOs don't belong on consoles camp, jump in and tell us why that's the case for you too. So put your comments, your answers to the question, your dub bombs, A bombs, everything in the comments below. Come on over to the site, check it all out there. Until next week, Jason, where can everybody find you?
Find me on the internet on Twitter at WinterInformal.
Easy enough. Mr. Sharps.
You can find me on Twitter at Zach Sharps.
I'm Mike Byrne, a.k.a. Magic Man. You can follow me on Twitter at MagicMan1, MAGICKMANN1, or, of course, come on over to MMOBomb.com. Check out all the great giveaways, articles, previews. God, previews. My eyes hurt so far for this week. So many previews coming up that we've got posted there. And until next time, gang, stay safe. We'll see you on the servers.